First we'll go over the supplies that I'm going to use today. So for brushes, I've got a little mix of brushes here. I've got my quill mop, the size 00. It's a squirrel blend and it's got a nice point at the end, holds a lot of water. So that'll be good for the petals. We've got a long round brush here, size 6, so that'll be nice for some long lines and details, and a little one just in case we want any finer details in there. So the paper is just 140-pound cold press paper. I'm not going to tape it down today because we're not going to be using a ton of water, so I want to be able to maybe move the sheet around, work on those petals from different angles. So just a loose sheet here. I've got a scrap piece of paper for working on colors, any adjustments I want to make. But I already have a bunch of paints already mixed up. I put together a palette the other day and just kind of reactivated it for this study today. So it helps to have some colors already mixed up so that you don't have to think about that while you are thinking about the shapes of your flowers and working on your painting. So let's get started. I'm going to begin by taking my quill mop and loading it up with some paint for my petals. And I'm going to start out really simple with these and create just dots of paint that I'm going to then pull out to create my petals. So I want to make sure that my brush is full of the paint. I've got a nice point, and I'm going to do 5 petal flowers here, nice and simple. I'll just start with one so you can see the process. Then I'm going to rinse, and I want a brush that's full of water but not too much, it's not dripping. So then I'm going to take that little dot of paint and kind of pull it out, and you can rinse in between. I'll probably rinse after the first 2. That part's up to you. If you don't rinse and keep continuing on, you'll have more pigment in each petal because you started with pigment. So I'll rinse again. I want them to be pretty light petals. And I'm going to turn this. That's why this is a little easier if this is not taped down. And then I'm going to go in with a smaller brush and drop some darker color, either a darker purple or a darker gray, black, purple, into the center. This little brush doesn't hold a ton of paint, so you gotta grab that paint. You want to get that bleeding effect out into the petal, which often happens in nature. Such a pretty part of the flower. And if you want, you can add a little color at the tip. Maybe a bright, I've got an opera pink, just for fun. A little bit of pink around the edges. When it's really wet like that, it's just going to kind of sit in the water for a little while till it dries. All right, now while those are drying, I'm going to add some little blue flowers around. For these, because they're small, I think I'm just going to create the little petal shapes versus going in and making the little dots first. So generally, if you're right-handed, you kind of want to start on the left side, move to the right. These are still wet. You could blow dry, so you didn't have any worry of rubbing these. Or you could just wait it out. I am a little anxious. I want to finish up this video for you guys. So I'm just gonna pay attention to my wet blooms, paint some little blue ones around. So these are also going to be 5 petal just small little flowers, kind of like a forget-me-not. The blue is a nice contrast to the purples and the pinks. Again, I'm going to do little groups of them. Sometimes only 4 petals fit, and that's fine. A lot of times that happens too, where get a little bleed in there. Kind of fun. You won't see the full number of petals on a flower. It may be a young bloom or have dropped 1 or 2 already. Let's just enlarge that one a little bit. Okay, I've decided that the last element I'm going to add is some eucalyptus leaves. So I wanted some more, some green foliage in here. I'll be adding some stems, but I thought maybe kind of a mint green eucalyptus would be pretty. So that's got the roundish leaves that kind of are big and they go up smaller and they kind of add accent to bouquets. Again, I've got a couple of little flowers, the little forget-me-nots that are still wet, so I just need to pay attention to those. I want the paint in there, but not too much, so I'm gonna create these little round-shaped flowers, leaves, and they get smaller as they go up. They alternate kind of off of their stem, which you can draw first, paint first, or you can kind of, I like to often, it depends, I paint the leaves and then I kind of know where the stem's going to be, but you can do it, either way. So this one we can kind of fill in that space there. This is kind of a watered down mix. It'll come out, nice and light. So I wanted to give it kind of a light effect. This is a cobalt green and a bit of a turquoise kind of mixed together. Got a little darker in there. Can drop in a little dark paint to add to that. This one I'm going to kind of have it angle over a little bit. So a few more little blue flowers sprinkled around. We don't want to fill in things completely, but we want it to feel like a nice shape overall. And you don't want, some huge gaps in there. Remember, you can have, they don't all have to be the 5 petals perfectly. One down here. Some that are a little lighter. A little more regular. Kind of fading off. Get a little variety in the blues. Okay, I zoomed in a little bit so that I can show you the details of making the center of these flowers. So I'm going to take, for the pink flowers, I'm going to take kind of a dark Payne's gray. They should be all dry now. Some of my blue flowers are still wet. Some of my eucalyptus leaves are still wet. So just have to watch out for that. So I'm going to create little dots. The details often make all the difference, So do, try, you want irregularity, but you also want some control here and nice little details. Okay, let's add some of the stems. We're going to bring them together like a bouquet. So they're going to kind of group in there at the center, kind of arch out. So I want kind of a grayish green. I'm going to do that for the eucalyptus. In the same family, the same color that I started with. I just added a slightly darker. And just a very loose suggestion. You might want to look at the structure of eucalyptus so you can kind of see how that works. So that is to connect the leaves. And then I'm going to just kind of create as if some of these stems are kind of coming down, they're kind of coming down into a bouquet. So again, you want to try to make it feel kind of loose. And we're going to want to add, kind of need to get some inside the blooms. There's a lot of flowers here, so you want to add enough that it feels like these are the flowers that have come together. So I'm going to add a slightly different green for some of my other green or gray. Like for these pink flowers, I think I'm going to do kind of a gray, more gray-green. And they're up there so you don't, you won't feel their stem a whole lot. But, there should be something that sort of suggests, if possible, so that eucalyptus is right there. But if I maybe kind of pretend it's behind, and there, and sometimes, there might be like little stems out, leaves. Step back, take a look. Get a little bit more weight in there. Those gray stems add a little shadow. So we're going to want sort of one other smaller, maybe some more brownish type green to pick up on a little bit of orange. Let's see, let's take a look. It's not really green enough. We don't want it to stand out too much, so we'll do that. Bring some of that eucalyptus green in. But still, it's nice and different. So we kind of need to decide if we're just going to come in here with stems. We want to try to tie these together with a bow. Again, loose and quick. It's trying to be a leaf there. It's got a lot of paint, so you want to kind of pick some of that up. Add it elsewhere. While things are wet, you have some time to, make some changes. Look for flowers that are floating, who need some stems. Just makes it feel like things are all connected. See right in there. And then they also have to have stems that are coming down throughout. While we wait for the forget-me-nots to dry. I'm going to do a little string. Let's see here, maybe with a pink or a purple. It'll tie in the pink that's in the blooms there. So not too much paint, test it out there. And I want it to look like it's kind of wrapped around. And you've got a little bow there. I use my fingers sometimes to wipe it away. I don't like exactly how it comes out. That's just for fun, to add a little highlight there. Okay, I'm going to add all the little orange dots in. I'm going to kind of speed through it. So we're all done with this one. It turned out very pretty. It's pretty simple, so that you should be able to try this at home. And it can always turn out, you know, different than you expected. You can try some different blooms. The variety is always nice to have, some big, some small, some different foliage, but you should enjoy the process no matter what you end up with.